Welcome to the Four Seasons Podcast, brought to you by B&H Wealth Strategies, serving Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia since 1966. Here, we guide you through the ever-changing seasons of your financial journey, offering insights to help you grow, protect, and enjoy your wealth. Ready to turn your financial dreams into reality? Dare to dream. And now, here's your host, President of B&H Wealth Strategies, Jeff Bingham.
Years of service is rare in the business world. This story is about longevity, values, and the people who built something that lasts. Welcome back, everyone. Skip Money here again with Jeff Bingham, President of B&H Wealth Strategies. Jeff, always good to sit down with you. How's your week going?
It's gone very well, and actually excited about this episode to talk about marking our 60 years in business at B&H Wealth Strategies. Quite a very very proud of it. I'm very humbled to be a part of it, to be a steward of it, and being second generation. And we'll talk about all those things. But yeah, just been a really special time. April 1st, as we'll talk about. Also during Holy Week, I don't know, just a lot of things that just kind of lined up. Just a really neat thing, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Very cool. Well, it's a big milestone. I mean, B&H is celebrating 60 years this year. So kick it off. Tell us about the history and the legacy of B&H Wealth Strategies.
Well, April 1st, 1966, marked the beginning of B&H Wealth Strategies. My dad and co-founder, Norman Hensley, that actually had a relationship that dated back. I mean, my dad was the life insurance manager at a large insurance agency here in Kingsport. And those that are familiar, Bennett and Edwards still exists today. But there was an opportunity that the Edwards family gave to my dad, and then invited Norman into it to come and buy that part out of it, and thus form the company that we are today. And that's kind of the beginnings of it. But if you go back and you think about 1966, my dad at the time would have been 34 years old. Norman would have been 30. I was 6 years old. I had two older brothers that were roughly 11 and 12 years old, if you will, at that time. And so just that kind of leap of faith, that entrepreneurial spirit, that courage, conviction, and such a healthy, and I would argue a healthy dose of kind of naive optimism that it requires to do that. And also the families, the wives and whatnot, both my mom, God rest her soul, and Norman's wife at the time, that they all had, and he had a young family too, all have to buy into that, because, going from the comfort of working for someone, going as opposed to starting your new business. It sounds exciting, which it is, but it is a big leap. And, that's a lot of long hours, a lot of weekends, a lot of sleepless nights. And when you've got a young family, you're giving up a lot of things. And so the whole family has to be on board, to really make that a go. And I always kind of talk, when I ever have an opportunity to mentor people that are thinking about starting a business, it's not just about you starting that business. You've got your team, your family, and that could be parents, grandparents. I mean, that could be, lots of things play into that. It really has to be a team effort, and everybody has to be on board to support that. And I think that's the foundation of how this place was built, based on what I'm saying right there, to endure. And, for 60 years, that's those are the cornerstones that were put together all those years ago.
Wow. Well, it's an incredible story. Have there been any defining moments or turning points that shaped the company's direction in the last 60 years?
Sure. We're trying. You told me I needed to be brief in this, so yeah.
Pick
No,
one.
I mean there's so many, but I think the ones that come to mind very quickly is, going back, is that 9 years after we started in 1975, I was 15 years old. I was getting ready to go into my sophomore year in high school, and my father had a massive heart attack.
Ooh.
And this was again 1975, so the care and the protocols were much different, in 1975 than they are, now in 2026. But my dad was in the ICU ward at Holston Valley Hospital at the time for more than a month, and more
Mm.
than somewhere between a quarter and a third of his heart. He must have a really big heart because he lived a long time after that. And my dad was an amazing man, but was killed as a result of it. Was damaged and basically just no longer useful as that. And his recovery from that took a long time as well. So he was in the hospital. He was out of work for a long time, and so and I really didn't appreciate it. That what I experienced as a 15-year-old kid going to high school and trying to think about being a sophomore, moving from being the big guy on campus, if you will, to a degree, when I was at John Sevier in junior high to a sophomore in high school was a big deal. My athletic, and I was, I played football and basketball and did in track and did these things then. So I was moving to that next phase right there. And my dad was not able to be there with me. So I just remember those things and I really recall them more now. It just, it didn't really resonate obviously when you're at that point, but it did have some impact certainly on my life and my brother's as well. So my brother John had to step up in a big way because he was older at the time, and he kind of came, my de facto father for a period of time during that. So again, but it goes back. So my family pulled together when my dad was that sick, and Norman and this organization, pulled together, and we made it through. So that's one defining moment. And there's my dad had a lot of health issues over time. I think I remember when I came to work in September of 1989, here is when I started. So I've been here, 36 plus years now doing this. And shortly after that, my dad had another heart episode and I knew nothing about, I was just learning. I was, kind of coming in the mailroom and working, shoulder to shoulder with my dad, just trying to learn what was going on here. I mean, I had vague familiarities with it, but right off the bat, he had another illness and that required me, and I vividly remember going into Norman's office when my dad was gonna be out, he was in the hospital, felt like he was gonna pull through, so we kinda gotten through that, but just sitting there and saying, I'm ready, coach, put me in, what do I need to do?" And I had no idea what I needed to do, but that's really how I started in that, kind of again not left alone, but without my dad, being with me to do it. Now, my dad was with me throughout my career in this thing, but those beginning points, I guess, that I would say from going from junior high to high school, and then just coming in here as a brand new, wannabe advisor, it required me to learn the business, to learn discipline, to learn to be very humble and but also have that naive optimism that I can do this. And I think that's probably what I would say. That's how I've held on to that for all these years. So that's a things right there. So if that makes sense. And there's a lot more, but those are two kind of defining moments, obviously, that stick out in my mind.
Big ones, big ones. Well, throughout the year, 60 years is nothing to sneeze at. What values or philosophies during that time have remained constant throughout the years?
I think now, first and foremost, it's, and I'm certainly much more aware of this now than I was, 3 years ago, when I was saved, when I gave my life, to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I understand service a lot more. But the business has always been built on serving the clients, right? In and that's where the Four Seasons come from, the hospitality, the whole thing that's kind of evolved. But going back to the beginning, my dad and Norman always were, you put your client first. As a fiduciary, you always put your client's interests first. And what you try to do is you promise a lot, but you need to deliver more. And so we've just been, I think this organization has been built on that it's not, and it's not the individuals that work here because we're going to come and go. I'm a steward of this business. My dad and Norman, as the founders, were just stewards. They passed that stewardship along to me. We'll talk about this a little more. I'm passing this stewardship along, to Jake, my son. So we're working on third generation here, which is just quite remarkable. But that's what the cornerstones of this place is that as long as you are always aiming all the way up and you're putting your clients first, then you're going to have your ups and downs, but it's going to work out, right? We're in a very, by the nature of the financial services business, the wealth advisory, financial planning business, it is a transactional business by nature, right? We buy and sell stocks. We own different assets and we move money around. So those are transactions. So, and that's a big part of it. And that's kind of the black and white of B&H. But we've always tried to do, and we've really elevated this, I think, over the years, and hopefully I'm continuing to elevate that, is that we want to have transformational relationships with our clients to where they become truly part of the B&H family. The one thing that we always say, and you've heard this a number of times on the podcast, that we are a family business and family is our business. And the folks that work with us here, and come and have been with us loyally for all these years, which I want to say, obviously, say a big thank you to all the time, is they are part of this family. I've got clients that I work with here that are aging now as I am, but that have been here as long or longer than I have been here. Like they started before I started in 1989. I've got clients on board here that still talk to, on a weekly or monthly basis that, remember the days of B&H being formed from Bennett Edwards to B&H Wealth Strategies, or at the time it was Bingham and Hensley. So it's just quite a remarkable story. It really is. And I'm just blessed to be part of it and, do my best and aim as high as I can every day to fulfill what my dad always told me my job, our job here, on earth is to make the place, to leave it, the earth, our place, our station here better than the way we found it. So we strive for that every day.
Awesome. Great philosophy. Now, looking ahead, what do you, and I know we're going to talk about this in the next episode. We're going to go a little deeper into the third generation that you just mentioned with your family. And briefly, what do you hope for the next generation of B&H clients and advisors, their experience? What do you hope for?
Well, I think, again, just continuing the service model, right? The serving our clients, that's what that's, if you, and I think this is, regardless of your faith and your spirituality and those things, we are here to serve others. We're not here just to serve ourselves. We're put on this planet to serve others and to make, and to carry that forward, to pay it forward. So I think that's certainly what I'm trying to do. And I think that, my son Jake and Matt is doing the same thing that our that's our mission. That's our calling. So we really just want to continue to stand on the foundation that was built, 60 years ago, and just to kind of, continue to build that up and stay true to that. And then, and adapt and adopt into the new world that we're in. And we've talked about AI and all these things here. I mean, think how different this is from 1966, to 2026 and what this thing is going to look like, in 2036 and 46 and so on, 10, 20 years from now, how these things are going to change. And that's where, having Jake come in, Jake's 30. He's almost exactly the same age as I was when I started here. I was 29 getting ready to turn 30 when I started here. And so that's, it's kind of where he is right now. He'll be 31 in June. So, but has a great understanding of technology, using, AI, using it as a companion for us not to get rid of, as I've talked about before, to make us better at what we do. So I think we're going to adapt and use the new technologies, the new investment strategies that are out there, still using the old tried and true, but improving on those tried and true. You don't throw away the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, but you can continue to improve upon that. And that's really what our uh, uh, goals are, our really aspirations, I think is probably a better way to do it. That's our kind of dare to dream. I think, to be around another 60 years. I heard Jake say it in a conversation we were with the other day, is that he hopes to carry this thing on, and the B&H is around long after I've come and gone. And my family's been here, since the early 20th century, and gosh, that's, we want to, not that we need to have our name first and foremost, but we want to be that institution. We want to serve this community. We want to serve our clients and we want to serve the Lord and, just leave leave Kingsport or bigger, if it's a bigger footprint than that, then so be it. But certainly the footprint with our clients that come in here and work with us, our footprint in this community, and if that grows and becomes larger, by doing things like this podcast and other things that we've got, aspirations and ideas about, moving forward, then, that'll be, that'll come not because we're making that happen, it's because we're doing the right things on a day-to-day basis.
Amen. Well, Jeff, I can't thank you enough for including us in your celebration of the past 60 years and for sharing your thoughts on the legacy and the future. And look forward to the next episode when we dig a little deeper into family matters and
Yeah,
how it affects
I'm
business.
sorry, I didn't mean to. I look forward to that as well. And like I said, what I want to say as we get ready to sign off here is that I just want to those that are watching, listening, and out there that are clients, just to say thank you to it is the clients that have made this possible. Without them, we're not around for 60 years, and that's obvious, but it's also needs to be stated. So thank you to everybody out there that has been a loyal member of the B&H Wealth Strategies family. God bless you all.
Awesome. All right. Well, God bless you guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Sounds good. Thanks. Look forward to it, Skip.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Same here.
Thanks for tuning into the Four Seasons podcast, brought to you by B&H Wealth Strategies, where your financial success is our priority. Schedule your free 20-minute consultation today by calling 423-247-1152 or by visiting bhretire.com. Take the first step toward making your financial dreams come true. Until next time, remember, every season is the right season to plan for your future. Securities and registered investment advisory services offered through Silver Oak Securities, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. B&H Wealth Strategies and Silver Oak Securities, Inc. are not affiliated.